Hello everyone, this is Cavell, and today we'll be talking about functions and what they are. Okay? So what's a function? Right? In math, you are going to be dealing with functions all the time, right? You're going to be dealing with functions in real life, in your personal life, the way you manage money, etc. When you're working, right? You're always going to deal with functions, right? So what are functions? Functions is simply a relationship between some number and another number. Okay? A function always has an input and an output, okay? And a function basically assigns a value to each and every input you give in, right? So one way I think about functions is I think of a machine. Imagine you're in a factory, so let's call this function, right? So this function, right? You have an input. Input by default is usually x, right? At least if you're dealing with two-dimensional. Your input is x and your output is y, right? So this function, right, takes in an x, you shove this x into it, right? And this function does some kind of magic to it and spits out a value or an output for your given x or for your given input. Okay? So some examples of function, right, could be working, right? So for example, let's just say you work for $10 an hour, right? $10 an hour, right? And you go to work and you think about what is your input? Well, what am I inputting into this work, right? Or what am I giving in? What am I putting into it, right? It's your time, right? You're putting in hours of work, right? So my hours is my input, right? So it's basically my X. And what's my output? Well, think about what you get when you're done working for X amount of hours, right? You get back money, right? You're getting paid for your hard-earned work, right? And you're getting paid $10 an hour, right? So for example, if I work 1 hour, right, I would get $10, right? If I work 2 hours, right, I get $20, right? And we can see that if we were to make an equation to describe how much money I make per hour, where hour is x, I could say y, meaning my output, the amount of money I'm going to gain, right, or how much money I'm going to make, is equal to 10x, right? So for 1 hour, it's $10. 2 hours, $20. 3 hours, $30. 4 hours, $40. Right? It keeps on going. Right. So this would be my function. Right. So function. Right. This f of x is the name of the function. Right. And the variable inside this set of parentheses is your input. Okay. So instead of saying y is equal to 10x, I could also say 10x is equal to f of x. Okay. This is basically saying this function is of x, meaning its independent variable is x. Okay, you shove in this input or this variable to find its output. Your output is f of x or y. Both of them are pretty much the same thing, and the importance of having it written as this is basically this is a function of x, meaning it depends on x. Okay, let's do another one. What's another example of a function, right? Let's just say you're in a taxi or you drive a taxi and the taxi tells me that you have to pay a $5 base charge once you get into the car, so I have to pay $5 automatically, and for each mile you travel you have to pay $3. Okay, and let's just say m is equal to number of miles. Okay, so we could say this function is g of m. Okay, well actually let's do another number. Let's just say Yeah, let's do P of M. Okay, so the reason why I did P of M is because P is the price of this taxi ride, right? And M is the number of miles. So in other words, we look at this and what does this mean? This basically means that you start off at $5 once you get into this taxi, right? And you pay $3 extra every time you travel a mile, right? $3 more every time you travel a mile. So instead of labeling us as f of x, right, my name is now P of M, right? So what does P of M mean, right? P of M is my function name, and the variable inside the set of parentheses is my input. So let's think about what this means, right? So if the taxi goes 0 miles, meaning I get in and I get out, I have to pay, right? So M is equal to 0, right? I have to pay $5, right? Because the base charge is $5, right? Now let's just say mile is equal to 1, right? Well, if mile is equal to 1, or M is equal to 1, that means 3 times 1 plus 5, right? 3 times 1 is 3, plus 5 is 8. Meaning you have to pay $8, right? So as you can see, right, this function is dependent on how many miles I travel on this taxi, right? If I go and put negative numbers, negative miles, right, that wouldn't necessarily make sense, right? So just have a brief introduction to maybe the next topic would be domain, right? My domain would be, domain is basically the types of values I can plug in as an input, right? And for the input, I can't plug anything that's negative, right? I can't drive negative miles, or I can't travel negative miles, right? So I could have 0 miles or more, but nothing less than 0, right? So we could say that M, M is greater than or less than 0, okay? So in other words, just to conclude, right, a function, right, is a relationship that sets a value for each and every input of something, right? So for the one before, right, I had a value of $10 per hour, right? For every hour you work, right, you get back a certain amount of money, right? And in that case, when you think about it, you can have quote unquote negative hours, right? Well, it doesn't really make sense to have negative hours, right? But those negative hours might imply the amount of hours you didn't work, right? So if you work for $10 an hour and you don't work for 5 hours, right, you're potentially losing $50, right? Had you worked that 5 hours, you'd get $50, right? So that's basically what functions are. And one important thing you do want to know is that every input should only have one output, right? In other words, if I work five hours, right, I shouldn't be getting two different pays, right? I shouldn't be getting $10 and $5, right? That's not a function, okay? So one thing you want to know is that when you graph a function, right? When you graph a function, right? When you graph a function, right, it should be able to pass the vertical line test. Vertical line test basically means if I were to draw a vertical line, right, and I were to slide it left and right onto this graph, right, it would the line will only hit the graph at any given point only once, right? So this would be a function because it hits every point only once, right? An example of something that would not be a function, right, would be something like this. Why is that? Well, when I draw a vertical line, right, and I keep moving it left, it'll hit 2 points of the function, right? So 1 point here, 1 point here. So by default, it should only hit 1 for it to be a function. All right. All right, that's it today about function. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.